Welcome to another episode of OG55 Live. I am joined by the Italiano, George, our host of Citrus Corner here on the channel, our Walt Disney World show. We are taking your questions live up next on OG55.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, to all who come to this happy place,
welcome to Orange Grove 55.
Welcome, everybody, to OG55 Live. It's OG and the Italiano here today taking your questions in an Ask Us Anything episode. This is live, by the way. This is not a premiere. This is absolutely live. So if you have any questions for us, make sure you put them in the chat. It's good to see everybody. We got T.S. Wade, Goo Gamp, Andrew, Matthew Murr, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us today. George, how are you doing today, sir?
I'm doing great. It's always a good time recording with you, bro, and especially when we do these lives, we get to interact with the people that enjoy watching our content. So it's always a good time.
Absolutely. Before we get started, if you could let everybody at home know where they can find you on social media.
Absolutely. You can find me on X, formerly known as Twitter, at Disney George. You can find me on Instagram under the Disney Italiano. And of course, you'll find me here on my home base at Orange Grove 55 with Citrus Corner with all that sweet, juicy, but sometimes sticky Disney news and info.
There we go. Let's dive into our first question of the day. GooGamp32 asks, should Disney partner with Microsoft to make animated features together and bring Xbox IP like Banjo-Kazooie and Crash Bandicoot to the parks in response to Universal partnering with Nintendo? So great question, GooGamp. We've been asked similar questions, for a while now because Nintendo has been very successful in their partnership with Universal, right? My general feeling on this is it kind of like what Walt Disney said when he said you can't beat pigs with pigs. When they kept asking him, hey, you know what? Why don't you give us more Three Little Pigs? He's like, hey, you can't beat pigs with more pigs. You got to try something different. I kind of feel the same thing here. I think it works for Nintendo and Universal. I think that's a great partnership, but I don't think Disney's going to beat Universal by trying to copy Universal and trying to scramble and find a video game property to utilize to compete. I think Disney is best when it competes, when Disney does what Disney does. So Disney, do your classic fairy tale musicals. Do what makes you Disney. You know what I'm saying? I don't think you have to copy or kind of mimic what Universal is doing in order to beat them. Okay, so that's kind of my feeling on it. Now, I do think that Disney's making the right moves in terms of gaming with Epic Games and things like that. That's a smart move to make. But I don't think you want to get into this whole thing where now you're creating content, like animated movies based on like Microsoft video games and things like that. I think that goes a little too far. Getting into gaming is fine, but once you start creating animated features based on these characters, it feels super reactive, in my opinion. And I just don't think that it's the right approach, especially since Nintendo is like, in terms of like IP, Nintendo is still the king. Nintendo is like the Mickey Mouse of the video game industry, and you're never gonna top that. So I think they should really just kind of take a different approach and do what Disney does best. That's just my opinion, though. What do you think, the Italiano?
I think I'm kind of like on a waiver thing here, kind of with that, because I do see what you're saying, and to me, like the IP with Microsoft, like with Banjo-Kazooie, Crash Bandicoot, love those video games, love those characters. I don't necessarily see them kind of meshing well in the Disney universe, so to speak. But here comes the other side of the spectrum. Does really, in the sense of when people thought of Avatar, and it's like, oh yeah, I could I would never say that Avatar would have fit in with Disney. I would have thought it would have fit well with Universal, right. But yet they were able to make it work. So I think it depends on the context of how you utilize these characters. But I think if you kind of overload it in a sense where you have too much, then you kind of end up swallowing your own content, so to speak, where because you're focusing on other kind of outside IPs.
That's fair. Yeah, no, that very, very fair. And Lucas Kim actually has a kind of semi-related question. And Lucas, we had Lucas Kim on the channel yesterday. Lucas, thank you so much, brother, for joining us on that video yesterday. And thank you so much for your super chat. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Lucas here says, accurate rumor says Sega is doing something big, a collabo with Disney for mobile games and also in the future. I'm fine with that. And see, this stays in the wheelhouse of gaming. So Disney's going to collaborate with a gaming company to make games. All good, not too dissimilar to what I just said they were doing with Epic Games. Disney also, I know they collaborate sometimes with Nintendo. Awesome. Just keep the gaming to the gaming, in my opinion. But what are your thoughts on this rumor that they might actually be working with Sega?
Yeah, so no, that's interesting, and I think that's a route to go, as you had mentioned. I think, as I said, in the context of how you utilize these IPs, these characters, this storyline. Yeah, keep it within the gaming world. I think, yeah, when you start going into the boundaries of like film and television and theme parks, I don't necessarily care to see a Crash Bandicoot or a Banjo-Kazooie walking around a Disney park. It's just not my shtick.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Lucas. We appreciate you, brother. We do. We really do appreciate you. Googam32 here says, with America becoming so politically divided, should Disney remove the Hall of Presidents and turn Liberty Square into sort of a horror land? Okay.
Well, technically, with the Hall of Presidents being there, it's already a horror land. So I'm just kidding.
No, exactly. Pretty much. No, I wouldn't want Horrorland. Yeah, I wouldn't. That doesn't work. I mean, for me personally, with all due respect, Googam, I wouldn't want Horrorland in that spot. I'm just not. That's just not.
Oh God, there's so many ways that I could kind of twist this around, but I'm not.
Look at George. Look at George. You're trying to keep it professional, bro. You're trying to keep it like
just a little bit.
A little bit. So with America becoming politically divided, do I think they should get rid of it? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. There's nothing wrong with having a Hall of Presidents. There's nothing wrong with having great moments with Mr. Lincoln at Disneyland. This is more, I don't know, it's kind of weird. And I know it's kind of threading the needle a little bit. It's more historic than political. I mean, I know technically it's political because you have these presidents, but it's a history. It's not, you know what I'm saying? I don't find it really political. I find it just acknowledging the history of our country and the presidents that have come before.
Right. And I think that's where the boundary is. I think what makes it historical is the presidents that came before us. But what makes it kind of like a controversial political is because they're adding the current presidents, like whoever runs for office. And I think that's where the thing is. But at the same time, it's kind of sad in a sense that we would have to remove a show or a type of attraction just because that people just can't be civilized. It's like, the politics especially in today's world are like so very touchy. It's just like, basically now we have to go through the waves of, All in the Family's Archie Bunker. There's three topics to never discuss: politics, religion, and everything else. So
there you go. Exactly. Rules to go by at the dinner table, basically.
Yeah, exactly. However, not really speaking just to the political side, but I think if they were to take it out, and something that would be, I think, kind of interesting if they were to put in, is maybe do like a play on the historical moments of America featuring the Muppets. Because I know, like, in that area, they used to do that Muppet show where it's up in the windows in Liberty Square and everything, and it was a huge hit. I still don't even know why that they got rid of that.
You can add the Muppets to anything, and I'll get on board. I think that's a fantastic idea. I mean, it's brilliant. Yeah,
so I think that would be great.
Yeah. One other suggestion, I would be okay with would be like, because right now, from what I understand, they add the new president pretty soon after they get elected, right? Like I remember Trump was in there pretty quickly after.
Yeah, well, now
it looked like Hillary.
The rumor mill was that Hillary had it in the bag, and they kind of had to scramble because they didn't think that Trump was going to get in. So if you actually look at the original concept of with Trump. It kind of has like that Hillary-esque
Right.
look.
Exactly. But for the most part, they put him in there pretty quick, right?
Oh,
so what I would maybe suggest is, because you said it's very recent and it is politically charged, so there might be some open wounds, right, with people that their candidate lost or what have you. Maybe give a little bit more of a grace period. Maybe don't put the new president in there right away. Maybe wait a couple years and then put the new one in there, so you give a little buffer between each thing. That might be the better option than to throw in the new president right away after a bitter, divided country, in a campaign, the whole thing.
Yeah, because usually Disney doesn't wait. Like as soon as they get elected, pretty shortly after, they got them into the sound booth recording their lines, their spiel for their speech in the show. So yeah, Disney usually doesn't wait that long.
Right, exactly. T.S. Wade here says, is Bob Iger in denial for thinking Disney is being woke? I don't know, just asking. So what I think Wade is asking here is, Bob Iger made a comment in several interviews now, I believe, and also at the shareholder meeting, that that he was asked about being woke, and he basically said, hey, look, you know what? A lot of people don't even know what really woke is. It's a hard to define term. He said it was overused, I believe. And look, here's the thing. In my opinion, he's kind of right about that, because it's like woke. What's woke? Everyone, if you ask people what's woke, everyone's going to have a different opinion as to what's woke. If I ask 5 people, is the Barbie movie woke? 2 might say yes, 3 might say no. Everyone's threshold for what is woke is different. So he's not necessarily wrong. You know what I'm saying? So I don't think he's necessarily in denial. I think that's kind of the case. And I think that's also, I think it's been used. Look, it's also been used. The goalposts have been even moved a lot. I remember leading up to that Barbie movie, a lot of content creators kept saying that movie was like the wokest thing to ever hit Hollywood because of all the stuff that we were hearing about Barbie. You know what I'm saying? And then the minute that movie started to make money, suddenly that movie wasn't woke anymore. So these terms are so easily malleable and shifted. So he's not wrong. Now, did Disney get into this political stuff too much? I think they did with a lot of stuff, and I think they should just kind of stay out of it and have less drama, the least amount of drama as they can. You know what I'm saying?
Right. But, I think honestly, Disney got a big taste of it, like after the pushback from the state of Florida with Governor Ron DeSantis, so they had to go through the whole shebang. And even though that they're on somewhat, good terms, as far as, meeting each other 50-50, but just the whole process, it's like, why put yourself through that? It's like, and I think Disney kind of learned the hard way. And I think that they kind of know, not to go that route. But I honestly don't know about you, bro. And I don't know about you, audience, but I'm just so sick and tired of the word woke and wokeness. It is beaten to death by a stick by everything. It's like, can't something just be, what? It's not my cup of tea. It's just not for me. It may be for somebody else, but it's like, if something is not to your liking, or it makes you uncomfortable, or it's against your moral values or whatever, it's considered woke. How about you just say, what? It's not my personal liking. It's against everything that I believe in, but you know what? That's me. If it works for you, good for you.
It's used as a way to get an emotional response from people. A lot of content creators, they use woke because they know it kind of upsets or triggers their audience, and it causes that emotional response. And that emotional response triggers more engagement, and I'm saying more eyeballs, more views, more subscribers, things like that. And that doesn't go just for YouTube, that goes for Twitter and all this other stuff, right? So it's like you can throw these buzzwords out there like this is woke, and all of a sudden now your engagement's through the roof because now you have people arguing about this woke movie, this, that, and the other. So I agree with you, George. It's overused. I agree with Iger on that. It's overused. I'm tired of hearing it too. And I think it's time to I'm just tired of the culture war in general. I really am. I'm tired of this culture war. I'm tired of everything being seen through that lens. You can't even talk about Tiana's Bayou Adventure without the culture war garbage coming through. I want to just analyze and have opinions on this attraction based on the merits of the attraction. And I'm so sick of hearing people. Everything is seen through that political lens. It's exhausting. It's absolutely exhausting. So the sooner this culture war is behind us, or it's less in your face, the happier OG will be. 100%. Googam32, can Disney make animated remakes of their live action movies? This is a crazy question. This is really, really good, Googam. I wouldn't actually be opposed to this because it can open the doors to some pretty interesting stuff. What do you think, George? Would you support this?
I actually do, and awesome question, by the way, Googamp. Like and it's something that a lot of people don't think of and even Disney, because they're so like hyped up on, okay, let's turn these animated films into live action. But at the same token, that if you kind of reverse it, especially a lot of the older classic Disney live actions, that you can kind of do a lot with it, because with animation, you can make your characters or storyline do stuff that in today's technology you can do with live action, but I still feel like that you can kind of do a little bit more where it kind of is seamless rather than it kind of being technology meshed with live action realism.
Right.
For instance, Swiss Family Robinson and 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, I think would be phenomenal films to make into a full-on animated remake.
Yeah, no, those are great. Those are great choices. I mean, I would even be down for something, and this is kind of crazy, but I'd even be down for them to do like the Indiana Jones movies in animated form, because I think that opens the door, like you were saying, in animation, the sky's the limit with that, and maybe not even necessarily remakes, maybe make new Indiana Jones adventures, like full-length animated movies based on Indiana Jones. I think that would be pretty awesome because, obviously Harrison Ford is getting older. He can't physically play the character forever. He's in his 80s now. So if you had like the animated kind of maybe trilogy or whatever, and I think it'd be kind of dope, So this is an interesting concept, Googam. I'm open to it, and I'm even open to them taking an existing IP like Indiana Jones and sort of making some new stories based on that. So interesting stuff, Googam. Very good question. Mr. Matthew Murr, friend of the channel all the way from the UK, Mr. Matthew Murr is asking, what do you guys really make of the idea of extended cuts of certain films, including but not limited to Disney? What are your thoughts on extended cuts, George?
So for me, I'm kind of okay with it, like, because I think for me, it kind of gives you the realism of like what the director sees in their vision, and then of course that you have the other side where it's like, okay, what does the studio want to see? And a big proponent of that actually comes, and I mentioned this before, was American Graffiti. There was a lot of controversial tension between George Lucas and the studio at the time, because George Lucas wanted to make his film the way he wanted to, and the studio saw a completely different version of it. And I don't know if I'm saying this word for word, but I remember someone was interviewed and he said he remembers George Lucas saying, of what it felt like to me was if you were to have someone have your child, and it's like, but we're going to cut off their thumb. But you still have your child. Your child is perfect. But, it's just one finger off the hand. Like, can't be that bad, right? That was George Lucas's interpretation of basically the studio cutting his version to what he really wanted.
Right. Yeah. No, I see that, and I think in the world that we live in now with like streaming and things like that, I think it's much easier to facilitate extended cuts. So you can release the theatrical cut on, like, say, Disney Plus, but you could also have the extended cut on that streamer too. It's easier to do that nowadays, than back in the day with like VHS, where you would need two tapes, two physical tapes. Now you can just add that stuff onto the streamer. So I'm open to it. I'm open to it. I mean, I'm kind of curious, like kind of like the director's cut or whatever. They did that with the with the Snyder cut, for DC recently. So yeah, I'm not opposed to it. Not at all, actually. I think it's kind of interesting, actually, to kind of see a little bit more of a little meat, a little bit more fleshed out for some of these movies, if you want to dive in a little further,
Exactly.
So Googam32 here says, what will it take for Esmeralda and Megara to officially become Disney princesses? Mulan and Raya are in the lineup, so clearly royalty and box office successes aren't determining factors. Well, the other weird thing about this whole official Disney princess lineup is that Merida from Brave is actually technically a Disney princess. They had a whole ceremony for her at Magic Kingdom, and she's not even a Disney character. She's Pixar. I mean, technically she's not Disney. You know what I'm saying? She's Pixar. So she's a Disney princess though. So that's weird to me. For me, Googamp, it doesn't really matter. It doesn't really matter what the official lineup is, what they aren't. In my opinion, for me, Esmeralda, Megara, they're kind of all in the same boat as the other princesses. It's all very subjective, I guess, at the end of the day. But what do you think, George? Do you?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I'm trying to think how to say it. So for me, it's if you have a strong female character
There
in
we
a
go.
Disney.
George getting woke again. There we go, George.
There I go. Yep.
Fucking woke, man.
If you have a strong female character in a Disney film, it doesn't necessarily have to proclaim that they are a Disney princess to be a strong female character. So I kind of like their characters as is. Esmeralda, like obviously she ended up with Phoebus, who was a guard, a knight, or whatever the term was. I think guard, ahead of the royal guard or something or other from Hunchback. So you can't necessarily take her as a princess. And Meg, she basically ended up with Hercules. So she's technically still human because he became somewhat human, but he still contained his godlike strength. So I don't think you could even put her in a category for princess. It's just they're just strong female characters who just happen to be non-princesses.
Yeah, no, exactly. Well said. Well said. Andrew Kellogg, question part 1 of 2. He's asking here, if you can demo a classic ride and rebuild the ride, like what Tokyo was doing with Space Mountain, what would it be? Mine would actually be the Matterhorn. I would bulldoze the Matterhorn, but rebuild, the Matterhorn, but I would change the vehicles and not make them bobsleds. I'd make them more like what Expedition Everest has. So I don't know. That's kind of what I would do. Beef it up a little bit, beef up that mountain, get those like, go ahead.
Do you hear that, OG? I think I hear in the wind, I hear like a riot coming from Diz Twitter right now.
Yeah, I know, right? Exactly. Well, sometimes you got to hit the track switch.
Oh no! I must have hit that track switch.
There we go. A little Expedition Everest joke. But yeah, I would do that. I would actually rebuild the Matterhorn. I would have like more of like the train kind of concept where it's not a bobsled, and it would also solve the problem of how kind of bumpy and how much that ride hurts. I don't know that if I was to tear down anything and rebuild it, I think it would be Matterhorn and kind of redo it in that Everest kind of style. What about you, George? If you would do any of them, maybe you won't even demo anything. What are your thoughts?
So for me, well, if yours is a little bit controversial, wait to hear mine. Okay, now for me, this is kind of a twofer, and I think I mentioned this on the show before, but in case I didn't, but I don't know if you would necessarily have to demo the whole entire things, essentially, but I would love to see the fusion of Indiana Jones and the Jungle Cruise.
Oh, yeah.
So I would love to see, it would be like a major, refurbishment. I'm for sure that they would have to kind of demo some parts to each ride but I would love to see the Jungle Cruise going into the temple, but yet also Indiana Jones coming out to the Jungle Cruise. Yeah, I think that would be really cool.
And that was for those of you at home that are not aware, that was actually the original concept where the Jungle Cruise, Indiana Jones, I think even the Disneyland Railroad, and a new minecart attraction were all supposed to share the Indiana Jones show building. So it was in the original plans. That would have been pretty cool. From what I understand, they didn't do it because if one goes down, they got to shut them all down.
And that would have been really cool, especially with the minecart, because it would have been like from the Temple of Doom. So I thought that would have been really cool.
Yeah, absolutely. Lucas Kim, thank you so much, Lucas, for your $5 super chat. We do appreciate you, Lucas. He says here, I'll die on that hill for wanting Magic Kingdom to get Space Mountain remake like Tokyo Disneyland. Yeah, and that's the thing, Lucas, is I'm a huge Disney fan, and I love the history of these parks, but at the same time, we have to be, I think, as Disney fans, a little bit malleable where we can kind of like these parks were designed from the beginning to change. These are not museums, you know what I'm saying? So it's like, I welcome change, obviously within reason, and that's where the arguments come in. I think a little bit, right? We should accept change and welcome change, but at the same time, you don't want to go too far with it where you respect nothing. Like you're just going to bulldoze pirates and put a poo ride there or something. Like you want to have some level of respect where some things are sacred, at least a little bit, right? But at the same time, you don't want to get so bogged down and mired in the history that you can't touch anything. So I'd be okay with that. And from what I understand, I never went on the Magic Kingdom Space Mountain. I couldn't because I had a head injury when I went to Walt Disney World. I didn't want to chance it. But I'm already messed up, so I don't want to make myself even more messed up. but I heard it's not even like, I heard it's kind of weak, right? Isn't it kind of like bumpy? And
It's rough, bro. Like I prefer Disneyland Space Mountain over Walt Disney World's tenfold.
Yeah. See, so I wouldn't be against that. I mean, I don't know. I think you have to be willing to budge a little bit with this stuff. And trust me, whatever Tokyo is going to bring us is going to be amazing because it's Tokyo and they always do amazing. So, but yeah, great comment, Lucas. Andrew Kellogg, what land are you guys most excited for from Epic Universe? George?
Well, for me, it would have to be so far. I mean, they didn't really get too much into the details on it, but I'm very curious and excited for Dark Universe. I think out of everything, I think honestly, even just the architecture, the goth style of the land is really eerie. It's very creepy, which I like that, and I think it would look really well at night. If they do like the lighting and the projections very well. And I'm very curious to see what the main attraction is. I know that there's going to be a type of roller coaster with the vehicles sort of like Guardians of the Galaxy Cosmic Rewind, but it's going to be based off of the werewolf. But I'm curious to see what that indoor kind of Kuka arm
ride
attraction is. Yeah.
I had to vote Dark Universe as well. And because here's the thing, I've already experienced a lot of what Super Nintendo World has to offer out here in Hollywood. Not all of it. We don't have the Yoshi ride and we don't have Donkey Kong. But I've experienced Mario Kart and the general gist of the land, and it's a cute land. But I kind of put it in that Toontown category, and maybe even less than Toontown, because Toontown has 2 e-ticket dark rides with Roger Rabbit and Mickey and Minnie Runaway Railway. I liked Mario Kart a lot. I disagree with the Italiano. I like it. He didn't really care for it. But is it anywhere close to either of those rides? I don't know, man. It's probably like a D ticket in my opinion, and I think the other 2 in Toontown are higher. I think they're like Cartoon Spin. Come on, that is like one of the best dark rides I've ever been on. It's incredible, and Runaway Railway is really impressive as well. So I've already been to most of Super Nintendo World. Potter, I don't know. I feel like it's kind of been there, done that already. This is like the third go at it.
Yep.
So it's a little been there, done that. It could be a lot different. We'll see. I mean, it will be different, but we'll see how if it's different enough, basically. The How to Train Your Dragon area, George and I did a video on that, and it was kind of, I don't know. I was a little bit underwhelmed, to be honest with you. I was expecting a little more, and I think it would be Dark Universe would be the one that I'm the most excited for, to be honest with you. I think that seems the most intriguing, and from what we've seen from like Bio Reconstruct and those aerial photos and stuff, that's the one that looks the best too. Like the portal for that one looks dope, dude, with the tree roots and everything. Mm-hmm. So it's got to be Dark Universe. It's got to be. And if they can nail those attractions in that land, I think that's going to be a sleeper hit, I think. Let's see here. We got Googamp again. Why do Disney Junior cartoons get more attention in the parks than Disney Channel cartoons? That's interesting. Why do you think that is, George?
For me, because Disney Channel cartoons are more obnoxious, to be honest with you. I think that they kind of run along the lines now with like the kind of like Ren and Stimpy, Ed, and Eddie kind of vibe for me, which I was not really a fan of the animation. I was not a fan of the cartoons. I don't know, just for some reason, the Disney Channel cartoons seem a bit more obnoxious to me. But as speaking into the parks that you for like children and everything, I don't know. I just think that the Disney Junior shows are more acceptable, more likable, so to speak. So I think that they gear towards. They probably look at the ratings on Disney Plus and on Disney Channel, to see like which shows really like bring in the viewers, and it's probably Disney Junior that showcases it more obviously.
Yeah, no, I would agree. Well said. I bet Disney though wishes they can get those Bluey rights. They got the rights to air it on Disney Plus, but they don't have the rights to put them in the theme parks. I bet you. And I heard recently, actually, from a report that they actually were going to get those rights, and they were going to have the merchandise rights, and they passed on it.
They passed on it. Major downfall, bad decision on Disney's part, and they're probably kicking themselves for that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Do you think they're trying to renegotiate?
They should. They should. If they're not, they'd be foolish not to. I mean, Bluey is a powerhouse on streaming. I mean, I've never seen it, but I've even heard adults say it's a pretty good show.
They might be saving that for the D23. You know, just, I mean, they're getting everything else big. It's like, we got the rights to Bluey.
Third park, baby, Bluey land, you know? We'll see. Now, I'm skipping ahead a little bit, but I want to bring up, I want to bring this up because it's actually pertains to our last question. And shout out to Maybe. We love Maybe. Maybe's in the house. But she says here they missed not doing an insane dark ride for dragons. And that's, yeah, I agree with you, Maybe. That's what George and I were saying in our Isle of Burke review or reaction video. It like that franchise is really, really dope. And then to not have a dark ride where you can fly on the back of a dragon or something cool like that, maybe kind of akin to like a Forbidden Journey. And you have these real physical dragons like up in your face and you're going through Burke and all that. I think that'd be a lot of fun. And instead, I just feel like we got a lot of carnival off the shelf kind of rides. You know, we got the roller coaster, we got the spin thing, we got, I don't know, man. I think they really missed like what Maybe was saying, really missed the mark by not having that dark ride. But what are your thoughts on this, George? I know we talked about it a little bit in the video, but what do you feel about it?
Yeah, I think honestly, whether they would have kept the rides that they are going to have in the park, I'm not a fan of them. I think that they're just kind of like typical amusement carnival knockoff rides that are themed to dragons, to be honest with you.
Right.
But if that's what they wanted, so be it. But I think a nice dark ride could have offset that feeling and just like kind of tie in the dark ride with that phenomenal live show that they're going to get.
Yeah, the live show looks really, really cool. That's actually the coolest part of the whole thing so far. No definitive statements here. Obviously, it's not open yet, so it's not fair to make any kind of definitive statements. But based on what they're giving us, you know, we're judging off of based on what they're giving us. I think the live show seems the best. Ali Aloha. Shout out to Alia. We love Alia. It says here they sell merchandise on DisneyStore.com. So I think something was renegotiated or patched. I cannot imagine them selling it on the website if they're not making a percentage. That's interesting, Alia. I did not know that. So they are selling this stuff on the website, George.
Okay. Well, maybe they might have configured something there.
That's interesting. Oh, thank you, Alia, for that. I did not know that. Laura Jonathan here says, should Magic Kingdom be renamed to Disney Fairy Tale Worlds or Enchanted Kingdoms for new lands on Frozen, Tangled, and Peter Pan, since Tron didn't fit in the park brand name Magic Kingdom? No, I think Magic Kingdom I think it's broad and vague enough that it kind of fits all of it. I'm okay with that. What do you think, George? Do you think that they should rename it to something else?
Yeah, no, I think honestly, Magic Kingdom kind of is ingrained in like the pop culture, especially for the Disney fans. I feel like even you say Magic Kingdom, you know, you're still kind of on play words that even though Tron is like digitalized, it could still be in a kind of like a digital kingdom type of thing. But yeah, for me, I wouldn't. If anything, I would change Disney's Hollywood Studios name before Magic Kingdom, to be honest with you.
Well, yeah, and Laura Jonathan gets to that in their next question. But no, you're right though, and I think also when you change the name. If you were to change the Magic Kingdom name to something like Enchanted Kingdoms or Fairy Tale Worlds, then what's Adventureland doing there? You know, what's Frontierland doing there? What's Liberty Square? Like, then nothing else makes sense. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, I think the name is fine. I think it works. Lord Jonathan here says, should Hollywood Studios, see, there you go, George, you read minds, be renamed to Cinema Park to cover film history and relocate Toy Story from Tomorrowland to Hollywood Studios, but move Frozen in Hollywood Studios to Magic Kingdom? What are your thoughts on renaming Hollywood Studios? Would you do like a rename, or do you think it works as Hollywood Studios?
I would definitely drop the studios for sure, because it's really not a working studio anymore. Hollywood, yeah, I would even drop, honestly, the notion, even though like with Tower of Terror, it says the Hollywood Tower Hotel, when you have Sunset Boulevard, that's a little portion that's of Hollywood, but that doesn't necessarily signify now with Hollywood. Yeah, I would do something like Disney's, well, I would have said Cinematic Adventure, but I think they might be saving that for DCA.
Yeah.
Yeah, something that still has to do with the movies, but not necessarily proclaiming to like the behind the scenes, but you're more into the story itself.
Yeah, like our theory or our idea, the wonderful worlds of Disney.
Yeah,
something like that would be kind of cool. You know what I'm saying? That's a wrap. 818. Out of the two choices for a third park in the Toy Story lot, Westcott or West Coast Animal Kingdom. Here's the thing. You already know what I'm going to say.
I already know yours.
Yeah, but it has to be Westcott, because I think with Westcott, I think it would work really well with the locals. I said it so many times, that drink around the world stuff and all the festivals, I think it would work really, really well out here in California, considering that we have such a huge locals fan base out here. I think it would just be an incredible success. West Coast Animal Kingdom, I see the magic about that park is that they had all this land to work with. To squeeze that in to 75 acres would be a huge disservice. You wouldn't get the same vibe at all. It would change all the energy of the park would be completely different being that small. You just can't do it. You just can't do it. You know what I'm saying? So while I would love to have a version of Animal Kingdom out here, I wouldn't want them to half-ass it and squeeze it into 75 acres in the middle of Anaheim. It's just not going to work out here, unfortunately. What do you think, George?
Yeah, I think it would be really cool if they could do it, but I think with the amount of space given, I wouldn't want them to do it if it's half-assed, because with Animal Kingdom, Animal Kingdom is a very unique park, and as I said before, you will never get another park like it ever again, I think, as far as for Disney goes. And I think the grand scale of it is what makes it so unique. So to kind of shoehorn it and cram it into that small park, I think would be a disservice to it, to be honest with you. Where with Westcott, you can kind of maneuver your way of like how many continents or countries that you want to have in there. Plus, it gives Disney major bang for those festivals and everything. So that's a win-win for Disney.
Yeah, exactly. Trip Johnson, it's always good to see you, Trip. Thank you for joining us, sir. Which is worse, Fast and Furious Supercharged, Superstar Limo, or Submarine Quest? I think Submarine Quest was a short-lived attraction at SeaWorld, and I honestly, Trip, I didn't go on that one, so I can't really fairly say one way or the other with that. I think George might have, because of the way. Have you been on that one?
No, I haven't, but I already know what mine is worse.
Out of all three of these?
All three.
Which one?
As bad as I've never been on Superstar Limo, but I mean, I've watched videos and of how god awful it looked. But at the same time, I'm sorry, Supercharged is one of the dumbest, pathetic attractions that have ever been made, especially when you're dealing with a franchise that has to do with speed and with fancy cars and what have you. And it's like they put you in front of a what is it, like a screen that kind of goes like around, and it's like, well, and as far as in Disney World, not Disney World, excuse me, Florida goes with Universal Orlando, they got you in a freaking tour bus, and it's like you're speeding with these helicopters, and it's all that. It's like, because you're going to like an after hours party or something like that. And I don't know who came up with that, but I mean, I'm sorry, that thing got to go. Like Wrecking Ball, TNT, whatever the hell they want to use, that thing got to go.
Yeah, and it's the same kind of issue here in California, right? Where you're in a tram and you're going 120 miles an hour on the 101. It's not exactly believable. You know what I'm saying? It's just kind of weird. I don't know. It's a bad attraction. They got to get rid of it. And from what I understand, they are getting rid of it. Trip. Actually, here in California, because we're getting the Fast and Furious roller coaster. It's that Fast and Furious supercharged element of the tram tour is going to go away. That's what I'm hearing, at least. So that's good news. But yeah, I would agree with you, George. Supercharged is the absolute worst. Superstar Limo was a very dated kind of attraction, but it had some cool, physical sets, things like that. It was kind of fun. I would give that the upper hand over Supercharged, which is just a screen tunnel, basically, at least out here in California. Yeah. Crazy stuff. CSRS. Apparently, there are rumors. Oh, here we go. This is your question, George.
Yep.
Apparently, there are rumors that Villains Land from Magic Kingdom is happening after all, and will be on the par size wise the Galaxy's Edge. Park size. Oh, will be on park size wise of Galaxy's Edge. Okay, so about the size wise. What attraction could you see them doing in this Villains Land? Go ahead, George. I'll let you take it away.
So for me, before getting into the attractions, I do have to say, as far as the aesthetics go for Villain Land, and I've mentioned this before on the show, and I'm going to start there first. If Disney is going to do villains, which I hope they do, I've been a fan of this idea for many years. I've actually even created a little bit of my own version of Villains Land back in 2006 when I had that idea pop in my head. It's been around in the Disney community for so long, and the crowd's response to villains at the last D23 was massive. Like the whole D23 erupted in the panel when Josh Tomorrow mentioned it. But if they are going to do, as much as I want to see villains, if they are going to do it, they cannot sugarcoat it and give us this watered down, diluted version because they're afraid it's going to be too frightening or too scary or let's play to the villain. No, if you're going to do villains, you have to give us villains. And you let the parents of the children make that decision, right, whether it's too scary for, because honestly, kids have thicker spines today than I think a lot of people, don't discount kids of how much they can handle. Yeah. I mean, a lot of kids, are watching stuff that probably would have given me nightmares as a kid. It's like, kids don't give a shit nowadays. So right, for Disney villains, it's like, come on, really? Like, don't give me that BS excuse.
Don't kids watch that Five Nights at Freddy's or something? It's not
they play the games and stuff like that. It's like,
right, that's scary. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. So for me, as far as like an attraction goes, one attraction that I know Disney's not going to do this because this was my idea. But hey, you know what? Disney, if you're listening, gives you some ideas. Use it. Just send me the residuals. That's all I ask.
Well, Universal stole your Duck movie idea. So
they did. So now it's Disney's turn. So for me, an idea that came to me back in 2006 was to kind of have like this thrill ride experience through the Cave of Wonders. So the queue kind of starts you into the like the marketplace of Agrabah, and as you enter in through the marketplace and what have you, you get taken down into the dungeon where Aladdin and Abu are, and Jafar, disguised as the older kind of peddler type of guy, opens the hidden wall that takes you out into the desert, which you then go into the Cave of Wonders. And Jafar then reappears and traps you in there by removing the big ruby off the monkey. Then you have to board the magic carpet, and it's a race of time to try to get out of the Cave of Wonders before it collapses on you.
That would be dope, dude. I would like that. For me, Villains Land, I'll start aesthetically. I think you have to do like a dark Fantasyland style. Yeah. You don't want a lot of color. You don't want a lot of like you were saying, George, like you don't want to sugarcoat this thing. It has to be like a twisted Fantasyland. So I'm thinking like kind of like that gothic, dark but magical, right? Kind of like Wizarding World is a perfect example. Like a dark but fanciful Wizarding World style. That's the aesthetic look that you want to go with. But then what I would do for an attraction would be kind of neat. You can have a Maleficent attraction, which I think would be kind of cool. But you can have a coaster ride system similar to that of like Cosmic Rewind. Mm-hmm. And in the middle of the building, your coaster goes around a giant animatronic Maleficent. You know what I'm saying? And your car, as you know, with Cosmic Rewind, your vehicles can turn and look at things. So you're trying to get away from Maleficent. Maybe this dragon can breathe fire, and your car is weaving in and out of this giant animatronic. It's trying to get you. I think something like that would be kind of cool. I just want, when it comes to Villains Land, I want dark and scary. I do not want like sugar-coated, like kind of like cartoony villains, where they cartoonify it, where it's like, I don't want that. You have to make it dark. You have to make it creepy. Do like what Universal is doing with Dark Universe, but do the villains like that. That's the route you should go in. So yeah, maybe they will. Hopefully they do it. I mean, it got a huge response at D23, so we'll see. CSRS, how likely would this hypothetical Villains Land get ported over to Disneyland Resort? Maybe in DCA if the park gets rebranded down the line. Yeah, maybe DCA. I would prefer, though, to keep that in Disneyland. That's a very Disneyland kind of land, and preferably if they could work it in somehow, maybe like connected somehow to Fantasyland. I think that would be the perfect kind of like juxtaposition of like you have the happy fantasy kind of, right? And then you go into the darker fantasy.
Well, and honestly, OG, since you said that, being that apparently since Avatar isn't going into the space that, Autopia. We kind of thought that would, maybe the Autopia motorboat area could essentially become, because it's right off of Fantasyland, so that you can go like right into there, and that becomes Villains, which then can kind of, you have that darker style that can then lead into like Tomorrowland. Exactly.
Interesting stuff. Now, what do you think, George, about this idea of DCA getting a rebrand? Because it's been the talk of the fandom now for a little while, since we've been hearing that Pandora is going into DCA. Do you think that's a possibility, or are they going to try to figure some California connection out to fit this land in there?
I think if they do, it's genius, because at the moment I can't think of shit of how that's going to fit into California. But I think honestly, Avatar might be the starting point of kind of rebranding the DCA, whether it's called California. And I mentioned this to a friend and collaborator of the channel, Mr. Michael Ebba. I mentioned this to him over the phone, and I said to him, I wonder if they keep the name California, not because it's going to be essentially a park about California, but it's just a park in California. So you're having an adventure in a theme park.
Uh-oh. Did we lose George?
You froze, bro.
George?
Can you hear me? It's you, bro. I think it's you. I think Mr. OG's
okay, I think I lost George. Oh.
Everyone out there, can you hear or see me, or can you hear or see OG? Because I think it might be OG. We'll continue on until Mr. OG comes back. So, Girly Nerd, I figured out where George and I must have met at D23 in line for the Art of Disney storytelling panel. Yes, that is, I did actually attend that, so that has to be it, because I remember that conversation, because when you brought up the topic when we recorded about you talking about Richard Sherman on a cruise, and I remember having that conversation with someone, and I thought, wow, to have two people have that kind of same experience, and I'm like, I think it was probably you. So yeah, it's yeah, it's that's quite interesting. It's a small world after all. What can I say? That's great. Let's see here. So while we're waiting for Mr. OG, now unfortunately, folks, I do not have the capability of bringing up your question, but I will do my best to kind of read along here. I'm just gonna scroll up here. Let's see where OG left off. Okay, Mr. CSRS. Let's see. If Avatar goes into the Simba lot, is it possible that what replaces Hollywoodland is the same land rumored for DHS, or could it be something exclusive to DCA? Okay, so let's see. If Avatar goes into the Simba parking lot, is it possible for what replaces? Now, okay, now if I don't know exactly what is rumored for DHS. I've heard that there are talks that some rumblings are going on for Disney's Hollywood Studios, but I'm not exactly sure what it is. If anybody knows, definitely put it in there. Or knowing Disney, like whatever that is, I know that they are sticklers for doing two things if they are planning on doing something of that. Because it definitely saves them money. So I think that it is a possibility because it's starting to show not too much, but a lot of DCA is kind of getting like the vibes of Disney's Hollywood Studios and vice versa. So it wouldn't surprise me if whatever is rumored for Disney's Hollywood Studios could possibly go into DCA. However, as far as like with Avatar, I'm still leaning more towards the Simba parking lot. I mean, I know a lot of people were saying it's definitely going into Hollywoodland, and if they could fit it in there where it makes sense, then more power to you. As long as it just doesn't get squished in there, because you want a land like Avatar, you want it to be able to breathe, especially with a cohesive land like that, with a lot of the plants and the mountains and all surrounding, life of Pandora. So you want that for sure. So yeah. So okay, going back, let's see, to the girly nerd. Favorite Disney princesses. Mine are Belle, Cinderella, Rapunzel, Ariel, and Giselle from Enchanted, if she counts. Let's see. I see a bit of myself in each. So sorry. I was looking at my message from OG. Those are awesome choices, girly nerd. My favorite Disney princess is Jasmine. Always been. I just loved her tenacity. I loved her willpower, but she also had a little bit of that feistiness to her. And of course, I absolutely love Jasmine's singing voice for A Whole New World. As I said, A Whole New World is my all-time favorite Disney song, and it's also part of my top 5 favorite songs ever. The Peebo Bryson and Regina Belle version, the song that is sung at the end of the credits for Aladdin. But as far as a princess goes, my all-time favorite princess is Princess Jasmine. Let's see. CSRS coming back on a previous Q&A. Slimer said he thinks the Avengers e-ticket will turn the land into a catch-all area for all eras of Disney Marvel. If they do that, is it possible? If they do that, is it possible down the line, web slingers? I'm not exactly sure, like the ending part of what you're saying. I think it was kind of like a typo. But speaking of the Avengers e-ticket, I don't know. I think that's kind of where they're trying to figure out the storyline of like which direction to go. I think they kind of I think it, you know, they kind of got the ride system, I think, a little bit decided, even though they haven't said really anything. We got a little bit from Destination D23 that the ride system is supposed to be something like you start out on land and it then takes you into the air, or at least gives you the illusion you're going to fly. But as far as the storyline goes, because they kind of go back and forth, like with the King Thanos and what have you, and I don't know if that's what's taking so long for them to kind of maneuver, like especially, excuse me, like with Deadpool and Wolverine coming out and Fantastic Four. I'm not quite sure like the route that they're going, but it'll be very interesting because I think that they're going to definitely give more information at D23 with the Avengers e-ticket. They're going to have to, because I mean, this thing has been beaten with a stick so many times as far as like getting delayed and on again and off again. They're going to have to give us something, because I think people at this point are like, they're curious still, but they're kind of losing interest. And then by the time that they give us something with a acceptable storyline, it's like, well, how relevant is it really going to be? Let's see, gets replaced with a better catch-all Marvel ride. Oh, okay. So I think that's what you meant as far as like for Web Slingers. No, I think Web Slingers is just going to kind of stay as is. You know, it's that CD ticket kind of attraction that especially like with young kids and young boys, they can relate to Spider-Man. As much as I would love to have seen Spider-Man get a better kind of ride system and storyline, I don't really think that they're going to change Web Slingers. Let's see, going back to Goo Gamp. With SeaWorld struggling and on the verge of bankruptcy, do you see either Disney or Universal buying them out? I don't necessarily think, I know for sure, I don't know for sure actually, but I don't see Disney doing that. I don't even think it's in Universal's cards right now, because I think both companies are kind of doing what, their own thing right now, with Disney kind of revamping the parks and the cruise line and trying to get the company back up on its feet. Universal is dealing with Epic Universe and going overseas with a Universal at UK and the park in Texas. I think there's just a lot going on right now, and I really don't think that they're going to be focusing on SeaWorld at the moment. But who knows? We really don't know, but I personally don't see that. Let's see. Girly Nerd. Let's see. What's your ratio of how many times you've been to Disneyland versus DCA? Mine is about 100 plus versus around 10. Still so much I haven't done in DCA. I want to try, but I'm scared to ride Goofy Sky School. Okay. So couple things with that. So it's interesting because I do love DCA. I really do. It is a great park. I love visiting the park. And with either, if I don't have a Magic Key, which I currently do at the moment, or if I just have a multi-day ticket, I usually add the park hopper, because I usually just don't stay. Disney World is different. Usually at whatever park I'm at Disney World, that's the park I stay in from morning to night. With Disneyland, I tend to go back and forth to each park per day. I do so much at Disneyland, then I do so much at DCA. There are days where I spend a little more time at Disneyland, and some days I spend a little more time at DCA. Just depends on the day or what plans I have with friends that when I meet them out there of what we're doing. But anyway, so DCA I feel is a great park. However, I can't justify the ticket price for DCA as a standalone single day park experience. I just don't. I love Cars Land. I love certain aspects of DCA. I love Grizzly Peak. But I can't see it still as a full day park experience. So I know a lot of people kind of tend to go to Disneyland more. And I think that's probably why I don't stay at DCA as a full day. Just to kind of pick the numbers. I think the numbers still kind of even out for me, because as I say, I go back and forth to both parks per day. For Goofy Sky School, It is very, for it being kind of like a smaller kind of kid attraction, it is very it can definitely make your palms sweat. But OG and I found out a fun little challenge. We've mentioned it on the show before when we did Oogie Boogie Bash. And again, every time we mention Oogie Boogie Bash, shout out to Jackie, our phenomenal tour guide and cast member, that we kind of did what we call the Goofy Sky School Challenge. Where you try to have an actual full-on conversation with the people you're riding in the ride while the ride is going, because it's basically it's swinging you, it's banging you, you're looks like you're going off the edge, you're going down hills and dips and everything, and you're trying to have a full-on conversation. So it's very fun, and it's a ride that I would say that if they did remove or replace it with something, I mean, it is what it is. But I mean, I have found a little bit more of a better appreciation for the ride just because for that challenge for sure. Let's see. CSRS. In a recent earnings call where Iger was discussing Disney's upcoming slate, he left out Avengers 5. At one point, somewhat recently, Avengers 5 was going to start filming the end of this year. Yeah, I feel like with Marvel and the Avengers, and this kind of goes back to what we were discussing with the Avengers e-ticket. I really think that they're trying to figure out the route of where Marvel is going right now, especially with the circumstances that surround Avengers 5 of like what it was supposed to be. Now the storylines changed. You know, are they going back to the original MCU? Are they moving forward like with the Fantastic Four, X-Men, Deadpool? So I think like on top of like not even just dealing with the attractions with Marvel, I think that also plays in the same bet with the films. And I think that's probably why Iger and Disney are not really commenting or mentioning anything with that until they can kind of work out the kinks with that. And that's just my opinion. But with what has been going on, this is the continuation with CSRS. But with what has been going on behind the scenes, is it possible Avengers 5 won't make that and be further delayed from its May 1st, 2026 release date? And by how much? I mean, it's possible. They still have time to kind of lock in dates and filming and everything. It may slightly delay them, but if they wait a long time, I mean, we could possibly be looking in maybe 2027. I would say, I think that would be the longest they would go, is like an extra year, maybe 2 out. But I think if they kind of go any further than that, I think it's kind of dead in the water with the Avengers, that is. And who even knows? They may even cancel it out anyway, because the possible success with Deadpool and Wolverine, X-Men, Fantastic Four, that may just be the new route that they go with Marvel. Let's see. CSRS continues. How do you think Disney is going to rectify Avengers 5 leading into Secret Wars now that King is gone? Who could be the new bad guy? So for me, I personally think I wouldn't, despite of like what was going on, you know, with all those, you know, issues, you know, again with Avengers 5, I wouldn't replace the actor just to keep the character. I would just go with a whole new different threat, to be honest with you, and I would kind of lean more towards Galactus or Doctor Doom. Because that way you can kind of tie it into the Fantastic Four, you know, and I feel like Galactus and Doctor Doom are more kind of well-grounded villains. I think a lot more people can, you know, they're more recognizable as being a major threat in the MCU. And I think that if they kind of create a storyline to utilize them in a big way, I think that would really be better for the film. Let's see. Googamp. If the Wild Robot flops like Ruby Gillman did, do you think Universal will shut down DreamWorks like how Disney shut down Blue Sky? And if so, will there be a similar fan backlash? I don't necessarily think. I think with Disney, I think everybody kind of ties into like the notion of it being, oh, it's Disney, so it has to be the best, and if it's not, shut it down. And it's like, why did they shut it down? It's like all this back and forth thing. I don't think Universal and DreamWorks would kind of have the same reaction with fans. I don't necessarily think they would shut it down. I feel like DreamWorks Animation still has a lot of IP attached to it that can kind of hold over. With the Wild Robot, I kind of see the route that they were going. I do. I have to say the trailer looks very interesting. I'm very curious to actually see it myself because it kind of gives off sort of like a mesh between WALL-E and the Iron Giant, in my opinion, and I love both of those movies. So I'm definitely curious to see how this movie is, especially with the trailer that I've seen where the robot kind of connects with a baby duckling because he got to see the duckling hatch and be born and kind of raise it, and it followed him everywhere. And then you saw the scene where, hey, bro,
What's up, dude? It's like that Rise of Skywalker trailer. No one's ever really gone. I'm back.
There you go.
So thanks for holding down the fort while I was gone, George. I had a little bit of an internet hiccup.
Absolutely. So, and then there was a scene in the trailer where you see the robot watching this grown duck, the duck that he's seen hatched and raised as a baby, flying away with his kind. And you see the emotion on the robot. And I thought, okay, this seems like a movie that I'm a little bit interested in, but I don't know how the overall spectrum of how like fans will take it. But just me being a film nerd, I'll definitely check it out. Cause as I said, it kind of reminds me of like a blend between WALL-E and the Iron Giant. And as I said, I'm a huge fan of both.
Perfect. Hey, George. So it's because I had to leave and come back.
Yes.
The chat, everything before I came back is gone. So keep reading them. We'll respond together. And then the first one I see is Alia's at 404, the Galactic Star Cruiser. So once we get Alia's, we can go ahead and I can take over again. So
sounds good.
All right. Here we
go. Going back to CSRS, what should Disney do in Secret Wars to ensure that they end on a high note before the MCU gets rebooted? Part of me still think Avengers 5 and 6 won't top Infinity War and Endgame.
It's really hard to top Infinity War and Endgame. That whole situation was such lightning in a bottle, and I don't think they ever will. To be quite honest with you, I think these movies going forward are going to be really, really good. I think Kevin Feige is really dedicated to writing the ship. I think so is Bob Iger. They want to get the MCU back on track, but there are certain things that just those perfect moments in time, and Endgame and Infinity War was one of those perfect moments in time. It just can't be duplicated. It's almost kind of like the lead up to the sequel trilogy for Star Wars. There was a magic in the air with that. I mean, the world was on the edge of their seat waiting. What's going to happen with these characters? Well, oh my gosh, 40 years later, it was incredible. You just can't capture that again. And I think with Infinity and Endgame, it's sort of the same thing. So I don't know. We'll see. Do you think they can kind of recapture that magic, George? Or do you think it's going to be, not to say it's not going to be good, but I think it's going to be,
Yeah, I personally feel like, no, it can never top Infinity War and Endgame. And I know I was just talking about this a couple questions ago with CSRS's questions, where I feel like, kind of moving on to what the direction was for Avengers 5, to kind of bring it on Galactus and Doctor Doom, because I think they would be better villains to use. But at the same time, I'm thinking, I wonder if they should just kind of throw out Avengers 5 and 6 altogether and just move into the new the new versions, sort of speak, of MCU. Now, when I say new versions, I mean like moving on, like with Deadpool and X-Men and Fantastic Four. I mean, I don't know. Do you really do you personally feel like we need an Avengers 5 and 6 after Endgame?
Yeah, that's the thing.
See, because
right?
for me, Endgame seems like that's it. It's Endgame. It's like that was the final chapter in that sense.
Yeah, exactly. It's. Yeah, I think after Endgame, they should have moved on. I think they should have moved on. Maybe rebooted the MCU and sort of gone in a different direction to sort of see what. I don't know. Maybe gone like I don't know, because now they're trying to kind of introduce new characters into this Avengers team, which is cool, I guess. But I think that core team was the Avengers, and after that they should have moved on. Maybe immediately after Endgame, take a few years off and to go into X-Men.
Yeah,
and kind of go from there.
Yeah,
I'll be right back, George. I have a little bit of an internet thing I'm gonna have to do on my end. I'll be right here, but I'll be right back.
Okay. So let's see. CSRS continues. Let's see. After the MCU gets rebooted. Did I read that one? No, I did not. Sorry about that. After MCU gets rebooted post Secret Wars, how long will it be before they focus on a new, younger generation of Avengers? And what can be done to ensure they don't run into the same problems they have had recently with the most recent phases? As far as that goes, I think that was kind of the issue. I think that they just kind of keep on going back to the same characters and just kind of revisiting that storyline. It's like they can never find where that cutoff point is and just let it go. Let it be that beautiful cinematic moment and kind of move on. I personally don't want to really see a younger generation of Avengers. I really don't. I would kind of like to just move on from the Avengers, to be honest with you. If any of the actors want to come back, maybe for like individual films or what have you, as long as the storyline's good. But I'm more curious to see about Deadpool and X-Men and Fantastic Four and kind of start a whole new generation of that way with the MCU and not necessarily keep on going back to Captain America and Iron Man and Black Widow. I'm kind of over it at this point. CSRS continues. Could you see Disney continuing Wreck-It Ralph with not a new movie, but a streaming series on Disney Plus, and what should it be about? Yeah, I mean, I don't think Disney's going to go the route with Wreck-It Ralph. I think, me personally, I think that franchise is kind of done, but you never know. I do think it would be strong as a Disney Plus series than movies, to be honest with you, because it kind of has like that it kind of has like that series kind of feel to it, sort of like Monsters at Work, of how they kind of played off of Monsters Inc. and Monsters University. So I could definitely see Wreck-It Ralph kind of being a Disney Plus series than another movie. What it would be about? Probably just the adventures like of Ralph and Vanellope kind of jumping it from game to game and maybe kind of get into these misadventures depending on like what game system they're going in. I think it'd just be kind of a cute, fun kind of show. Like
a Wreck-It Ralph show. That'd be really cute.
Yeah.
Really cute.
Let's see. JD Mean, I guess it's meant, like green or gruen. I don't know. It's kind of spelled differently. I apologize if, okay. So he's just saying, okay. Love the question about the villains attraction. Okay. Let's see. Let's kind of see. Okay. So JD then asked the question, OG and George, assuming Tomorrowland gets addressed post, Disney forward passage, what would be your ideal Tomorrowland 2.0 for Disneyland?
You know, for me, like for Disneyland, I want to see them do a retro Tomorrow, you know, kind of go back to that mid-century aesthetics of like that 1960s Tomorrowland. But I want them to not just, this is my biggest issue with Tomorrowland right now, is they keep redressing those buildings over and over and over again. I want them to completely bulldoze it and give us a brand new Tomorrowland with that retro future aesthetics. That would be ideal for me personally. You know what I'm saying? But you got to get rid. See, this is the thing. You got to get rid of those buildings from the 1960s. You have to actually give us a new Tomorrowland with new architecture, even a new layout, perhaps, right? You know, you want to do that. I think that when they just keep taking those same structures and just keep repainting them, it's like lipstick on a pig, you know? So you do the retro future thing, new architecture from the ground up, and I think that's kind of the way to go.
I agree. I think honestly, as far as like with different like attractions and IP, there's really nothing too much for them to go by since Disney is heavily on the IP. So it's basically they're kind of like locked into what they can use. However, if they end up kind of like demoing the Autopia and the motorboat and the submarine voyage, I kind of personally, I mean, I might be in the minority here, but I would kind of like to see more of like an expansion for Fantasyland, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
Kind of leaning more towards the villains, because there's really nothing, again, too much to go on with Tomorrowland. And I don't really want to see a West Coast Tron. I really don't.
Nah.
And again, I think, as OG said, I think just the aesthetics of the land would be good enough for me. And of course, I say change the aesthetics and add back the people mover. There's your new Tomorrowland.
Exactly. That's kind of where I'm at with it. You know, I mean, obviously you have to address the launch bay situation. That takes up a huge piece of property. You want to address that. You know, but if you fix the aesthetics of it, that's like 80% there. Because if you look at the attractions at Tomorrowland, it's not the attractions necessarily that are the problem. You have Space Mountain, which is still one of the most popular rides of the park. You have Star Tours, which is still very popular. You have Buzz Lightyear, which is popular. You know, even Autopia and the Lagoon. I mean, these are popular rides. They're still packing people in. It's the aesthetics that's the biggest issue for that land. You know, the people mover track that hasn't been used in decades, the launch bay that sits empty. You know, that kind of stuff is what we have to really address. But if you can get the aesthetics, you're 80% there, and then maybe add like maybe take some of that. And maybe take some of that money and funnel it more towards a new Fantasyland, because you're right. That's where all the big IP is at. That's where all the, you know, for Disney, that's where all the money's at, you know?
Absolutely. And then moving on to Mr. Sam Chat. How you doing today, Mr. Sam Chat? He writes, hi, OG. According to CNBC, Iger also bought Fox so that Dana Walden could work at Disney. Does this change who you think will be the next CEO? Personally, if Walden and Staggs were co-CEOs, I would be okay with that. Walden can oversee the entertainment side while Staggs oversees the business and money side of Disney.
Yeah, I think we mentioned that in a recent show, didn't we, George? Where we're talking about, because Disney's thinking about, they're seriously considering bringing in the president position again, which would be right under the CEO position. So if you have Dana Walden as CEO and you have like a Tom Staggs as a president, I think that's a solid team. That's an extremely solid team. I'd be 120% supportive of that. I got to look into Dana Walden a little more. I think she's competent enough. I think she's really smart, and she's done a good job at the division that she runs, which is Disney Entertainment. George and I have issues with some of her Kathleen Kennedy opinions, things like that. But overall, she's done a good job. She's on Joe Biden's like import-export advisory board. So I think she's got the. I know, like, you know, Joe Biden, not everyone likes Joe Biden or whatever. I understand that, but the overall idea of her being involved in politics like that, in that kind of capacity, is good for Disney, because when you're a Disney CEO, you're dealing with other governments. You know, you're dealing with the Chinese government. You're dealing with stuff like that. So it's good to have a CEO that would be kind of privy to those kind of negotiations, how to deal with, you know, heads of state, things like that. So I think her Joe Biden experience actually plays well to her advantage. So she's got the chops. She's probably the front leader. We saw on CNBC that they were running with that story that she's the one. We'll see, you know, we'll see. I think she's got a better chance than Daddy Josh.
Oh, absolutely. And especially since her background with Fox, you know, it kind of brings in I think, like, because we've said it many times before on the show that we, you know, would like to kind of see an outsider, so to speak, come in and kind of shake things up, because that's what Michael Eisner and Frank Wells did, right? You know, so I mean, I think, yeah, despite of, you know, my personal feelings towards Dana Walden's outlook on Kathleen Kennedy, if they are true, if the sources are more, you know, substantial, then, but other than that, as I said, Kathleen Kennedy is still in the company anyway, with Iger at the helm. So it's like, sometimes you kind of have to kind of pick and choose your battles, and you're not going to agree with everything that the CEO is going to go for. Exactly. That's the thing too. You're never going to have a Disney CEO that you're going to be like across the board in agreement with. It's never going to happen. You know, I liked Michael Eisner a lot, but I didn't agree with everything Michael Eisner did. Not at all. You know what I'm saying? And same with Bob Iger. I think Bob Iger has done a lot of great things, but he's also done a lot of bad things. So
same will be true with Dana Walden. There's going to be things we love about her, and there's going to be things that are like, you know what, I'm not on the same page, and it's just going to happen. No one's perfect, you know.
Absolutely.
Except George. He's perfect. He's sexy.
Moving on to Mr. BJ Vincent. So part 1 of 2. If you had to make a choice of one of the 4 clone rides that exists now, Mystic Manor, Enchanted Tale of Beauty and the Beast, Pirates of the Caribbean, Battle for the Sunken Treasure, and then continues on, or Monsters Inc. Ride and Go Seek, to be put at a Disney resort, Florida or California, what would it be? I know what mine would be.
Go ahead. You go first.
Okay, so now I do love Mystic Manor. Well, I've never been on Mystic Manor, but I do love how Mystic Manor looks like. So I would love to see that. However, for me, I absolutely love, and I've said it before many times on the show, and OG knows this because he and I see the same thing. Beauty and the Beast for me is the absolute creme de la creme for a Disney animated feature film. I love the movie. I love the music. I love the characters, the animation, everything. And to actually see that put into a ride, especially of how Tokyo did it, I would give my arm and leg up to bring Enchanted Tale of Beauty and the Beast to either California or Florida. I would take either one.
Wow, that's amazing. Well, I'm on the same page with you in terms of Beauty and the Beast. As a movie, it's the absolute crown jewel of the animation of Disney animation. You know, I've said it before. Go ahead.
Sorry, yours is Mystic Manor, isn't it?
Yeah, mine is Mystic Manor. Yeah, because I think that Beauty and the Beast Dark Ride in Tokyo is beautiful. I think it's very well done, and I actually think we're going to get kind of a similar attraction with Tiana, with these animatronics and stuff that we're seeing for that ride. So we're kind of getting, it's not the same IP, I get that, but we're kind of getting a version of it in a way because these animatronics are very similar to that of like what we see with Belle and things like that. Mm-hmm. So Mystic Manor, though, we don't have anything like that here in California. I would love to have that. I mean, we could have, and I've said it so many times on the channel, but you can have a Latin America land at DCA, which would fit in perfectly with California Adventure because Latin culture is very prominent here in the state of California, especially Southern California. But you can do that Encanto house that there's rumored to come to Animal Kingdom. You could do that here in California, and you can do it at DCA, and you can use that Mystic Manor ride system. That's what I would do. But that's kind of where I'm at. But look, the Beauty and the Beast attraction is nothing to thumb your nose at. I mean, that's a beautiful attraction, but Mystic Manor though.
So everyone in the chat, I'm gonna take a poll. So whoever would like to see Enchanted Tale of Beauty and the Beast, put it in the chat. If all of you would love to see Mystic Manor, put it in the chat. I'm very curious.
Yeah, absolutely. What's our next question, the Italiano?
Next question coming from the girly nerd. Favorite Muppet movies? Mine are Muppets Take Manhattan and Muppet Christmas Carol. I know OG loves that one.
Yeah, Muppet Christmas Carol is my favorite. I just have a soft spot for that movie. I think it's a beautiful movie. It's a great holiday film. Come on. I got to go that. But hey, the Muppets, like I said, like you can't go wrong with the Muppets though. If the Muppets are in it, it's going to be automatically, at least there's a baseline good just for them being there. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
So just for them being there is a baseline good. But I would take Muppet Christmas Carol. What about you, George?
Nice. I do agree. I think the Muppet Christmas Carol is a not just a great movie, but a holiday classic that I think like a lot of people take it, as like better than the actual story of, A Christmas Carol. They love the Muppet rendition. But just to kind of add a little bit more to it, I also love Muppet Treasure Island. That was actually the first Muppet movie I actually got to see in theaters. Because Muppets Christmas Carol came out in 92. I was a little bit young to go see that in theaters, but for Muppet Treasure Island, I was 6. So I was able to enjoy it, on the big screen. And I just love, again, the Muppets rendition of Treasure Island. I love it. And Tim Curry, as Long John Silver. I mean, Tim Curry can't go wrong when you want a good villain. I think, honestly, he is like one of the greatest actors to play like a cynical, ruthless kind of like villain that you just love to hate and hate to love, But another one is the original Muppet movie. I absolutely, I have a soft place in my heart for that movie because it actually was made by Jim Henson himself. He was Kermit the Frog. And of course, another one of my favorite all-time songs that is actually on my top 10. A Whole New World is top 5, but this is part of my top 10 is Rainbow Connection. I love the Rainbow Connection song. It has such a beautiful message. And just the words, you could put it to like a lullaby, you could put it to, just a very tranquil song. So, and again, just the story of Kermit, wanting to make it to Hollywood, with his dream of becoming, famous and meeting up with the Muppets for the first time, of how they all got together as a team. And, it's the original Muppet movie, you gotta love it.
You gotta love it. You gotta love it.
Let's see. The girly nerd continues. Midway Mania or Buzz Lightyear? I've only done Midway twice. Girly nerd, honestly, you're not missing out on anything since you did Midway Mania, to be honest with you. That's just me. You might love it. You might enjoy it. I like Buzz Lightyear. I'll do it as a fill-in, like if there's like absolutely nothing else to do. But if you did Midway Mania, there's nothing really in that style of ride fashion that could beat Midway Mania.
Yeah, no, Midway Mania. I gotta go Midway Mania. It's the best of those kind of rides because Web Slingers is like a mess. Like when you're doing your webs, you can't tell whose webs is whose. It's a big guessing game. Buzz Lightyear is kind of like that too. It's a kind of a guessing game a little bit. With Midway Mania, it's very clear and concise. Like when I shoot something, I see exactly what I'm shooting. So I think Midway Mania is the best.
Yeah, absolutely. T.S. Wade, now that Wish is a hit on Disney Plus, will it become a classic? We would say you, OG. What do you think? You think it would go the route as Moana?
No. It's not going to go full Moana. No, I don't think it's going to go Moana. I think what'll happen with Wish is kind of similar to what happened with like Brother Bear and like Treasure Planet, things like that, where they didn't do well in theaters, and they were kind of panned at that time as like bad movies, this, that, and the other, whatever, But I think as time goes on, I think people will be more open to it and kind of like grow a fondness for it. So yeah, it's not going to be Moana. There's no way. Moana is a juggernaut. I don't think Wish is going to do that. But in 20, 30 years from now, maybe even 15, I think people will look back at Wish and go, that was a good movie, like they do with Brother Bear or Treasure Planet.
Yeah. So I think it'll definitely do better numbers on Disney Plus than it did in the theaters, because I think that's just the way it is now. It's like people, they're already paying so much for a subscription, especially now with like the trio bundle that you're going to have with Disney Plus, with Hulu, with ESPN. The price with the trio bundle, the price goes up. So with people doing that and then having to fork out more money to go see it in theaters, especially if you have a big family or you have multiple kids and what have you, it gets pricey. So it's like, if we're going to pay for the subscription, let's get our money's worth and just wait for it to be free on the streaming service. And I think that's the case that happened with Wish. I agree with you. I don't think it'll get the banger numbers that Moana has, but I feel like that Wish will kind of be a little bit of that juggernaut, so to speak, with that it's like it's there, people appreciate it, but it's like it'll only kind of hit that certain leverage.
Yeah, exactly.
Let's see. Gugam says The Phantom Menace, excellent choice, George. Thank you very much. Yeah, I thought I'd change it up a bit. Put on some good old fashioned Star Wars. Maybe says hi, Orange Cuties.
Oh.
That's awesome.
Hey,
that's awesome.
One sec. Here we go. We got a little something for Maybe. Here we go.
Cause I'm that girl that drives you crazy, but you're killing me alone. Got you thinking maybe alone. Got you thinking maybe alone. Got you thinking maybe.
Maybe is in the house. Thank you so much, Maybe. We always love having Maybe in the chat. She's awesome. Yeah, absolutely awesome.
Awesome. Yeah. And I love the play on words of Orange Cuties. That's awesome. But I do have to just add a little bit to that too. We're not just cuties, but you know what? We're fine. So
Oh man, that's great, George. That's great. Wow, that came out of nowhere, bro. That was good, man. That was
Thank
good.
you. Thank you. Appreciate it.
That's great.
Let's see. Fiji 93 says, oh, give me 1 second. Cool. Okay, let's see. Let me go back here. Oh, I lost my spot here. Okay. So I'm just going to go back really quick to my spot to Fiji 93. We're going to take a few more question, folks. We do apologize. We're just having some technical issues, so we'll wrap it up, unfortunately. But if you have your questions that we didn't get to, please feel free, write them down, or if you remember them, feel free to put them in on our next live for sure.
Absolutely.
So Fiji 93, do you think Iger will introduce his replacement at D23?
I don't. No, that's a company corporate thing, and they're not going to want to make. I don't know. That's kind of a weird thing to do at D23, don't you think? Because it's kind of like, in a weird way, it's kind of like throwing shade at Bob Iger. Like, it's a celebratory, like, he's gone, yay. Like,
right, exactly, because you don't know how fans are going to react to that kind of thing in that environment. So they could be like, yeah, Bob, get the hell off the stage, bring on Walden. You know, it's like,
no, I don't think they're going to announce it like that. I mean, what they might do, though, is they might announce it before the expo and then have the new CEO join Iger on stage and do that whole thing. But announce it and risk it not landing well with fans, it's too risky.
Yeah, I think, too, and especially because you would have to have a specific panel for that. You know, so if people don't go in the panel, I think they want to just make it like a broad thing. I think, honestly, what they'll end up doing is possibly saving it for like a quarterly earnings. I think, I wonder, or possibly, I don't know, like how far like they would do it, or possibly save it for the next shareholders. I don't know if they would go that far out, because I know that's like yearly. They might want to say it sooner, or they just may pick a random day where it's like breaking news. You know, Dana Walden is going to be the new CEO of the Walt Disney Company. But yeah, I don't think it's going to be at D23. I really don't. Yeah. Let's see. Let's go. Okay, we'll go to. Let me see. Is this a question? Let's see. Trying to find a question here. Let's see. Okay, here we go. So this will be. Unfortunately, this will be the final question. For tonight. As I said, everyone, we appreciate you. We love all you. Please, you know, if you want your questions answered, as I said, write them down, save them. When we do the next live, definitely throw them in there. So last question for this evening. Goo Gamp asks, with dinosaurs set to be replaced with an Indiana Jones ride, I've been pondering the question, when does a Disney ride outlive its IP's relevance?
That's a tough one. I don't know. It depends on the attraction. If you have a good attraction, sometimes it never does. Look at Waterworld over at Universal. That IP is so dead. It was never alive. I mean, that movie bombed. It was one of the biggest flops in like Hollywood history. But the attraction or the show at Universal is fantastic. It's still around, you know? So, I think as long as you still have a good attraction, I think you're good. I mean, is Mr. Toad as an IP, is that hot right now? Not really. Toad isn't like moving a whole lot of merch, but people still love the attraction, you know? So I think it just depends on the attraction. If it's a good attraction and people love the attraction, I think the IP doesn't matter too much. You know, what are your thoughts, George?
Yeah, I think it's. Yeah, I don't really think that there's like a set date point like for the IP's relevance. I just think that if it's popular enough, you know, and you know, people tend to it, such as I said, I think a bigger audience was used for Mr. Toad's Wild Ride as the ride towards Disneyland than it was at Walt Disney World. And I feel like that's where Disneyland still has the attraction. Because if you really ask people like Wind in the Willows, they'd say, what is that? You know, but us as Disney fans, we know what that is. But I feel like there was a bigger audience for that as well. So I think it's just, you know, I guess it's just in time. I feel like it wasn't necessarily, I think when it comes to dinosaur, I feel like Disney had a vision, and I feel like that they tried to get the dinosaur notion in, but they just couldn't hit the right marks like Universal did with Jurassic Park and Jurassic World. And I think that they kind of extended it as much as they possibly could to where they just can't anymore, not just for Dinosaur the Ride, but just for the whole land. And I think that's where they're just kind of like, you know, the dinos have to fully go extinct, no pun intended.
Yeah, and I wouldn't mind if they tied dinosaurs into the Indiana Jones ride, because I think you could do that. I think there's a story to be had there. You can have him kind of searching, like I said before, for some sort of dinosaur egg or some sort of thing like that. It'd be kind of cool. But yeah, I think dinosaurs' biggest problem is just the attraction is just weak. You know, It's just a weak attraction. It's just, I don't know. And it's weird too, right? Because it's the same ride system as Indiana Jones. It goes to show you too how execution, like we talked about this with Jay Shear the other night, remember? How the ride system doesn't really, if you don't have the story, the ride system doesn't really matter, you know? So, but we want to thank everybody for joining us. So sorry for the technical issues today. I've been having a slow connection on mine. It's kind of screwing everything up, but we do appreciate everybody today. If we didn't get to your question today, we're going to have another Q&A very, very soon. So make sure you save those for the next Q&A session. But George, you have any final comments or anything before we take off today?
Just the last thing I just have to say, I was running through the comments really quick, but so far it seems like your Mystic Manor won, bro.
What? That's crazy. Okay. Yeah, it's a unique attraction. Mystic Manor is really cool. Really, really cool. I love that thing. So we'll see.
And as I said, I appreciate, you know, OG's choice and all of you that agreed with him. You're all wrong, but I agree. You know, it's I just kidding with you.
Exactly. But George, if you could let everybody home know where they can find you on social media, sir.
Absolutely. You can find me on X, formerly known as Twitter, at Disney George. You could also find me on Instagram under the Disney Italiano. And of course, you'll find me here on my home base at Orange Grove 55 with Citrus Corner with all that sweet, juicy, but sometimes sticky Disney news and info.
There we go. I want to thank everybody in the chat for joining us today. Again, do apologize for the connection issues. It won't happen next time. I don't know what's going on. Spectrum likes to do this to me. It happened the other night too, right, George? It did. Oh God, it's so frustrating. But we do apologize. But thank you so much for joining us today on this episode of OG55. And until the next time, peace.
세상은 누구에게나 공평하게 추악해.